Glad to have you join me on the Housing Development Program this week. I'm Fleur Ani, your Housing Diva. Starting off today, we shall be discussing urbanization and the provision of affordable housing, plus the need for the provision of basic infrastructure by the government, even as some Nigerians speak on the three most important infrastructure that need the government to provide. But before we begin, as usual, let's bring you up to speed on the happenings in the housing sector.
The federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to addressing Nigeria's critical housing deficit by championing innovation and collaboration in the mortgage sector. At the 21st Mortgage Bankers and Brokers Conference held in Abuja during the weekend, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, called for a renewed focus on partnerships and creative solutions to expand access to affordable housing loans for Nigerians. The Managing Director and CEO of the Mortgage Banking Association of Nigeria, MBAN, Ebilate Makioroki, emphasized the need for the commercialization of land and property titles, a move they argued would unlock the housing sector potential.
We want to see how we can commercialize our titles, and to do this, we have to transform the certificate of occupancy, deed of assignment, and other title documents into tradable assets. Then two, to implement a legal framework recognizing electronic printout of title documents as prima facie evidence. So I believe Dr. Kehinde's committee will also consider this fact that we need electronic evidence as ownership of housing in Nigeria.
The Housing Development Advocacy Network, HDAN, has called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the National Assembly to incorporate tax relief measures for developers of social housing and building materials in the proposed Nigeria Tax Bill 2024. In a statement released in Abuja, Executive Director of the Advocacy Group, Festus Adebayo, emphasized that excessive taxation could hinder the delivery of affordable housing, thereby eroding the hopes of millions of Nigerians in dire need of decent shelter. HDAN specifically advocated for the inclusion of low-income housing tax credits in the new reforms, which would provide a vital incentive to construct or rehabilitate affordable rental housing for low-income households. Adebayo urged the federal government to issue these tax credits through a competitive process, ensuring they benefit those genuinely committed to addressing the nation's housing crisis.
That was a news update. For more stories, do well to visit www.africanhousingnews.com. As a result of urbanization and lack of economic opportunities in rural areas, many people move to the cities. The move to the cities that are already dealing with issues of overcrowding, infrastructure, and high cost of living. As population growth rises and urbanization continues, cities are faced with a number of challenges. With an increase in growth in population comes an increase in demand for housing. How do we tackle this? Take a listen to this.
Urbanization refers to the increasing number of people that live in urban areas. It predominantly results in the physical growth of urban areas, be it horizontal or vertical. Currently the 7th most populous country in the world, Nigeria is set to overtake the United States to become the 3rd most populous country in the world by 2050, according to a United Nations report. Naturally, with growth comes development. But is that the same for Nigeria? Prince Onibokun Abimbola, Principal Partner, Development Planning and Management Consultants Limited, said urbanization was an essential part of global growth, but for Nigeria, he described it as a work in progress.
A city is a center of hope for development. It's becoming a cause because sufficient plans are not being made to cushion, to make the city provide the job and joy of development.
With an increase in growth in population comes an increase in demand for housing. However, Prince Onibokun lamented on the current shortage in the provision of affordable housing for the people, stating that it would even be more of a problem in the future.
There are no sufficient provisions to provide houses for the people. The influx of people is not commensurate with rate of housing construction. So there is acute shortage of houses in the city. Shortage at all levels of demand, both at low, medium, and high income level. There is acute shortage of provision for houses and for infrastructure. And it is a big problem.
Preferring a solution, he said the cost of building materials has to be brought down, easy access to land, and a concept of cross-subsidy, whereby people can pay for houses gradually according to the level of their income.
First, we have to create access to building materials that is affordable. We have to bring down the cost of building materials. We want to reduce the problem of access to land. If you have land, in the villages you can quickly talk to people and get land and build, but in the city, the lands are regulated. So you have to create access to land, access to labor, access to building materials, then even the technology.
Speaking on how the provision of housing is relative in boosting the economy, he said the construction of a house alone is directly providing jobs for people.
One house feeds more than 20 families. The builder, the engineer, the bricklayer, the masons, the artisans, all of them they feed on one house. If the construction industry is booming, the economy will sprout. That's the first principle we must know, because a lot of people are involved. And when you build a house, cement, sand, water, all those elements are involved, and there is a bandwagon effect on the economy. So housing industry alone could create a turnaround on the economy.
Prince Oniboku Abimbola there speaking on urbanization and the provision of affordable housing. Right after the break, I'll be joined by Barrister Festus Adebayo, the Executive Director of Housing Development Advocacy Network. Stay with Housing Development.
Attention, Africa. The most anticipated event in the housing sector is here, the Africa Housing Awards. It's time to celebrate the people, projects, and companies that are transforming African housing. Nominate your favorites and let their achievements be recognized across the continent. Who do you think has made the biggest impact in affordable housing, sustainable design, and innovation? Now's your chance to make your choice heard. Visit www.africahousingawards.com today and nominate your preferred winners. Show your support for those making a difference in the housing industry. The Africa Housing Awards, celebrating excellence in housing across Africa. Nominate now.
Welcome back. You're watching Housing Development. In a historic ruling on Monday, December 2, 2024, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission secured the final forfeiture of an expensive estate in Abuja. The estate, situated on plot 109 Cadastral Zone 309 Lokogoma District, spans 150,500 square meters and comprises 753 duplexes and apartment. Well, to discuss this with me, I have in the studio Barrister Festus Adebayo, the Executive Director of Housing Development Advocacy Network. Good to have you in the studio, Barrister Festus.
Thank you, Flora. It's my pleasure to be here.
You're a well-known voice in the housing sector. Now, what is your take on this matter? 753 duplexes and apartments owned by an individual and left without occupant in a country where we have a huge housing shortfall.
Flora, it's a very sad development. I don't know how we are going to explain this to the international community. It is degrading. Very sad. Very embarrassing. Let me tell you, if Nigeria don't kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. That is the fact.
We don't pray for that at this point.
So that is the fact. Because the situation is getting out of hand. They do it, and at the end of the day, nothing happened. That is why you see them continuing to do it. And that is the fact there. You can imagine one person building 750 units of houses from the foundation to the level of completion to the level of finishing. No subscriber, no back loan, nothing, nobody, nothing. No owing any building material company, no owing anybody. What do you call that? That's money laundering. And that is the reason why you see a lot of houses in Abuja not being occupied. Here, the person that is involved is not the only one that is doing it. There are many of them. We are only lucky to get this one. There are many of them. The houses are in the city of Abuja. The journalists should go out and do investigative journalism to save our country from this criminal act. All over the world, money laundering is a criminal act. How do you expect an innocent estate developer who is struggling to talk to bank to get loan and they are measuring 30% interest rate to compare with this set of criminals who they are calling top brass of government? In a country where people are dying in the hospital, how because they cannot afford to pay 20,000 hospital drug or pay 20,000 bill. It is very sad. We cannot continue with this. It shows that corruption is part of us. And until we remove the corruption, this is a basic fact. Until we remove the corruption, we are not going to get to where we are going. And I must say this before I go. This is a big threat to the real estate development in Nigeria. It is sad for some of us that are promoting the development of real estate sector to keep hearing cases of money laundering left and right. This must stop. The government must rise up to the responsibility of regulating this sector. How did they get building approval? How did they, what name did they use to build the house from beginning to the end and then finish it and leave it there? In Nigeria, where a lot of people are struggling, looking for where to lay their head. This is bad, and every Nigerian must condemn it. But the embarrassing aspect of this matter is that after some time now, we will not hear about it again. Remember, there was a case like that, the Accountant General of the Federation, that stole big billions of naira and went to build a big market in Kano. What can you tell me? What has happened? Is the man in prison? Who is talking about the person, about that man again? Nobody is talking. Somebody have done deal with that man. And that is how you will not hear about the matter again. The same thing will happen about this. After a few times, all of us talk and make noise, we all bury it. Because those who will go there and do the deal, they will do the deal. And then they will share the houses among them. Nigerians must rise up and fight corruption if you don't want this country to collapse.
All right, so before you go, please, in fighting that corruption, let me ask you this final question. Real estate is now becoming a choice for hiding, let me use the word, illicit fund. What can be done to close that loophole?
Is to regulate the business of real estate in Nigeria. All over the world, real estate is not for Dick and Harry. There must be a system to regulate on who go into that business. If we have a regulation, we will have discovered from at a particular level of who is the owner of that property. By the way, it's not borrowing money from anywhere. It's a free money that is using. So if there's a regulation, there will have been a documentation somewhere that shows. And I'm also aware that some of the names they must have used to build those houses must have been what are the names? And that's some of the journalists have to go and even investigate. Which name did they use to build that? Which name did they use to get building approval? So the real estate sector must be regulated. It is time for the government not to just food house. It is time to call the National Assembly members. I know some of them are also into real estate. They did real estate before they could even get into politics. It is time for all of us to come together and see how this profession, real estate, how this business, real estate, will not be destroyed. Because once it is not regulated, anyhow, and we continue to hear stories like this.
All right, so thank you so very much, Barrister Festus Adebayo, for your thought on this matter. We do appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much.
I've been speaking with Barrister Festus Adebayo, the Executive Director of Housing Development Advocacy Network, on the 753 duplexes and apartments owned by a single individual in the Federal Capital Territory. It is time for the regulators, industry players, as well as government to stand up and begin to work effectively to be able to cover these loopholes that make it so easy for, in quote, illicit fund, to be hidden in the real estate sector. It is time for us to stem that tide. Keep watching Housing Development. I'll be back in a moment.
It's good news. Are you a stakeholder in the built environment, or you are looking for an authentic, credible source for housing and construction news in Africa? You now have an opportunity. Africa International Housing Show has now created a unique opportunity for you by establishing a full-fledged housing television, the first of its kind in Africa. You can now access information on home ownership, rental, building materials, finance, real estate and insurance, among others, all on Housing TV Africa, channel 149 on StarTimes.
Welcome back. In pursuit of its mission to deliver affordable housing across Nigeria, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund has received substantial backing from key stakeholders in the housing sector. This development emerged during an interactive session with the House of Representatives Committee on Housing and Habitat at the National Assembly in Abuja.
In a bid to provide affordable housing across Nigeria, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated's Real Estate Investment Fund, MRIF, has garnered significant support from key stakeholders in the housing sector during an interactive session with the House of Representatives Committee on Housing and Habitat at the National Assembly in Abuja. The fund, established to address the nation's housing deficit, received commendations for its potential to improve housing accessibility. The Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, pledged support to MOFI and called for collaboration among other housing institutions, including Federal Housing Authority, Family Homes Funds, and Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. He commended President Bola Tinubu for his renewed hope housing and finance initiatives.
I want to take the opportunity to congratulate our president, at least for making the housing sector a priority by giving attention it deserves. Because in terms of finance, in terms of policy, in terms of programs and initiatives, I think the Renewed Hope agenda is indeed a renewed awakening of the housing and urban development sector. We have been in touch with the MRIF through the Minister of Finance. In fact, he invited us for a meeting when this is being conceived. We sat down and we discussed it. Then also on the MRIF, our concern basically is almost solved because FHA has made its own case. They should also be involved. Private developers should also get loan from the MRIF to build houses, and FMBA should be there to create mortgages. Most especially if the FMBA is empowered to create more mortgages than it used to do.
The MD and CEO of MOFI, Dr. Armstrong Takang, highlighted President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's directive to prioritize liquidity within the housing sector, stressing the need for accessible and affordable mortgages with longer repayment terms as a strategy to address affordability challenges and reduce the prevalence of abandoned houses.
We need to provide liquidity that allows Nigerians to afford the mortgages to buy these houses. We also need to make sure that we're not only relying on government money for mortgages. We need to create structures, we need to create incentives to attract private sector and other institutional investors to bring in their money into the housing sector, which is what informs the MOFI Real Estate Investment Fund. It is a structure that is registered with Securities and Exchange Commission. It is regulated, and it also has a governance that allows private sector to feel comfortable to bring in their money into the sector and also to be able to exit profitably. While at the same time, government will achieve its own objectives of creating jobs, of growing the economy, housing Nigerians, and ensuring that we get that sector moving again.
We have had a number of engagements on the program at the level of the Federal Ministry of Finance, our supervising ministry, the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, and the meeting of Mortgage Bankers Committee hosted by the Central Bank of Nigeria. I have also been opportune to engage privately with the promoters. Mr. Chairman, sir, given the gravity of the challenge we face in the housing sector, especially finance, the establishment of MREIF is a good initiative with the potential to enhance the depth of Nigeria's housing and mortgage finance market. However, as we engage in this dialogue, it is critical to evaluate its scope, potential beneficiaries, and alignment with overarching objective of promoting inclusive and affordable housing for all Nigerians.
Stakeholders, including the president of the Mortgage Bankers Association of Nigeria, UMBAN, Ebilate Makioroki, and representatives from CBN, FHA, and Redan, also supported and lauded the establishment of the Real Estate Investment Fund. They emphasized the need for a well-structured framework to ensure the fund's success.
Idea, and we are ready to work with it. We are ready to run with it. All we have said is also to thank MOFI for making a lot of consultation, because they have consulted us as mortgage bankers. They have met Federal Mortgage Bank. They have met. So they've met everybody. All we have told them is let there be a structure. Because for any mortgage product, there must be underwriting standard. If you don't have underwriting standard, you don't have character. So there must be underwriting standard.
We are craving the indulgence of the MOFI to further equip us with all the concept papers that we have, so that we have a full understanding of what they intend to achieve, and that will form the basis of the final position we can take.
The initiative of MOFI, this is very fine, but please help MOFI to get this bank on. Use your power as National Assembly. If these monies you put them and government have, if you give the money to Federal Mortgage, they give us who construct those houses, and you give to the same Nigerians at affordable prices, nobody will complain.
So when we hear all of these things, as Nigerians, we look at each other, and and we can do these things. We can put all of these things in place. We can get these fundings, for Federal Mortgage Bank, for example. We can get this funding for Federal Mortgage Bank at next to nothing. We can get involved. They will need data and all of that. So please, and we are ready to continue to do as much as possible, but we cannot build and not see people that will buy from us. So that's why we need what he's talking about, mortgage, to be readily available so that we can build knowing that people can buy.
The Executive Director of the Housing Development Advocacy Network, HDAN, Festus Adebayo, said the Real Estate Investment Fund by MOFI is a wonderful initiative, while calling for collaboration among stakeholders to make it a success.
We want to let you know our position is that it's a very wonderful initiative. Just as the Federal Mortgage Bank, FHA has said, UMBAN have said, it's a good initiative. We are supporting it. We are requesting from MOFI to work collaboratively with Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, work very well with family-owned firms. So I want to support Mortgage Banking Association of Nigeria here today to request with highest humility from the National Assembly members to look into the issue of Land Use Act, Mortgage Bank Act, and many other things. I want to let you know, FHA Act has since expired. We have called on the MD to rush down to the National Assembly and get that bill edited, reversed, so that they can be able to do what they are supposed to do in the 21st century. The same thing has to do with Federal Mortgage Bank. There are many transactions Federal Mortgage Bank cannot do because the law that backs its existence is moribund. This is our concern. And we are using this opportunity to call the National Assembly. We will write you in details of all those bills. I will be ready to form a lobby group to join you and ensure that this is done.
In his response, the chairman of the House Committee on Housing and Habitat, Honorable Abdulmumin Jibril, reaffirmed the committee's commitment to supporting the initiative while directing that all outdated housing laws be brought forward for revival and amendment.
Regulation of this sector is key, and it will be stronger than NCC. It will be self-funded. Why is it that in this country we have so much opportunities, but we are not even looking at it? Yes, it may be a bit technical, the issue of land, state government, but the moment you sit down, you'll be able to dissect these things and understand how they... So the ball is in your court. As you bring them, we'll deal with it.
The House Committee promised continued collaboration with stakeholders to resolve issues in the housing sector.
You're watching Housing Development. The Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and the Mortgage Banking Association of Nigeria have their quarterly meeting at the bank's headquarters in Abuja. Our correspondent has more detail.
The Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, FMBN, and the Mortgage Banking Association of Nigeria, MBAN, had their quarterly meeting at the bank's headquarters in Abuja to interface between MBAN and FMBN on issues of common concern affecting both parties in the ordinary course of their business. Delivering his opening remarks, the MD and Chief Executive Officer of FMBN, Shehu Osidi, emphasized the importance of holding the quarterly meetings regularly as intended. Osidi also highlighted some of the challenges the bank has continued to observe in their engagement with primary mortgage banks.
The current executive management intends to reverse this course going forward. Accordingly, I want to assure everyone here that the bank holds this platform in high esteem, and we remain fully committed to ensuring that these interactions happen consistently, as they are pivotal to fostering stronger collaboration and better outcomes for the Nigeria mortgage finance sector. Some of the challenges that FMBN has continued to observe in our engagement with primary mortgage banks. Number one is that most PMBs are unable to submit interim security alongside with the NHF loan applications. This causes delays or inability to disburse loans. Non-disbursement of funds to the beneficiaries by the PMBs within the stipulated period of 60 days. Third is beneficiaries and property frequently swapped by the PMBs after approval by FMBN. The implication is that the bank carries the wrong names of beneficiaries in its books if proper reconciliation is not undertaken. We also have some PMBs who do not meet their financial obligations to FMBN, thereby increasing our non-performing loan portfolio, while some are in the habit of stopping regular remittances with claims that they are undergoing reconciliation. We have discovered that some PMBs also use reconciliation as a cover to delay remittances as they fall due. Some PMBs also do not submit audited financial statements when requested. And this also impedes our ability to conduct our regular accreditation. While some PMBs also warehouse repayments of customers instead of remitting them to FMBN. Like we know, disbursements are normally made through PMBs, and so is repayments. In fact, our guidelines require that even where a beneficiary is not servicing his or her loan, the PMB is under obligation to service. We have also had cases where the beneficiaries would have made repayments to PMBs, but some PMBs would hold such remittances without sending them to the bank.
Osidi further added that FMBN views MBAN and the PMBs as critical partners in fulfilling the mandate of providing affordable housing for Nigerians.
I must stress that FMBN views MBAN and REDAN and the PMBs as critical partners in fulfilling our mandate of providing affordable housing for Nigerians. I wish to therefore commend the MBAN and REDAN under the able leadership of the two presidents for the cooperation and understanding we have had so far, especially in addressing the issue of the single obligor limit to the CBN and other critical matters. I am encouraged by the rapport, and I have no doubt that we will continue to work closely to ensure that our processes and actions align in the larger interests of our sector.
Osidi commended the association under the leadership of Mr. Ebilate Mark Yokori for the cooperation and understanding the bank have had so far, especially in addressing the issue of the single obligor limit with the CBN and other critical matters.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Oh,
huh? What is it again?
Oga, and they drive this car, my mind no dey. My landlord is on my neck.
Your landlord again? I thought I have told you this before. Get a mortgage, register with NHF scheme, and get a home up front. What is so difficult about this?
Oga, I will do just that. See, I will shame that my landlord. Mortgage.
At the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, everyone deserves a home.
It's countdown to Africa Housing Awards. The prestigious Africa Housing Awards is just 12 days away. This highly anticipated event will bring together key stakeholders, industry leaders and innovators to celebrate outstanding achievement and excellence in the housing sector across the continent. As the countdown continues, preparations are in full swing to ensure an evening that highlights the remarkable contributions of individuals and organizations dedicated to advancing housing solutions in Africa. Join Africa Housing Awards team to recognize and honor the visionaries shaping the future of housing on the continent. Now here's a quick one from the organizers.
It is a good development. It's something that we encourage others to look forward to annually, and I hope they'll be able to sustain this. Senator, I will see how we can give support to them in the Senate so that they can go ahead to improve housing in Nigeria.